Was this the best Tour of Flanders you've ever seen?
Yes.
Can Wout van Aert ever win Tour of Flanders if Pogačar and Van der Poel are starting as well?
No.
Can Lotte Kopecky take the Flanders Roubaix double?
Yes.
Is Wout van Aert your favorite to take victory on the Velodrome in Roubaix?
Yes.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's be twins in my brain.
Tadej Pogačar is the name. You can call him a Tour of Flanders winner now. The Slovenian phenomenon crushed the cobbles on Eau de Quarmont and rode solo towards history. After Louison Bobet and Eddy Merckx, he's only the third Tour de France winner who's able to win Flanders' finest. We witnessed some more history in the women's race as Lotte Kopecky joined the select group of Tour of Flanders record holders. Yeah, I needed 3 domestiques to survive this Tour of Flanders review and Paris Roubaix preview. So welcome Yves, Bram and Josh.
Hey. Hi.
On Monday I texted Yves with the message, "This was the best Tour of Flanders I've ever seen." And yeah, he replied that he needed some more time to let it sink in, but what's your opinion on this take now?
This was one of the most beautiful Tour of Flanders I ever witnessed. There was racing right from the gun, some echelon action, which we talked about last week, that it might not happen, but I think Bahrain wanted something else. And then it was right 6 hours full of hard racing. A lot of plot twists with a big group going away. But at the end, the best has won.
And what about you, Josh and Bram?
Yeah, I personally, it's been a great edition of Tour of Flanders. I don't know if it's the best one ever. I remember a couple, or in my memory, the one with Gilbert actually in the past couple of years was a really good one as well. And then you have the Boden Cancellara battles from the past. I loved seeing those. It's of course a bit more. It's about 10 years ago for those now. But yeah, it was a great edition, no doubt.
It was one you won't forget about, right?
No, I don't think so.
You, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Bram. I think I maybe preferred last year's just a little bit more because having Pogačar and Van der Poel next to each other on the final 2 climbs last year was just so iconic. I mean, it's my Twitter header. I absolutely loved that last kind of 20k. But it was still brilliant. You know, if every race was as exciting as that, I'd have absolutely no complaints. It was just stellar from about 120k out. It was great.
All right, let's get back to those first hours of racing, which were incredibly fast. I think it was like 50 kilometers an hour after 2 hours of racing, average speed. Yeah, it took a while for the early breakaway to be formed.
I don't know if you can even call it an early breakaway at that point. It did take them about 2 hours to form.
Exactly, and yeah, we witnessed some echelons as well, which I didn't expect. I said that in the preview, I think. And guess what? Mathieu Van der Poel, he was relaxed at the back of the peloton, and all of a sudden, the guy was in trouble.
I mean, Wout van Aert was really close to him at that point, but right when he saw the break happening, he made a jump for it. But yeah, I think we covered it in the preview that in those early kilometers there is a back tailwind, cross tailwind. So it was possible, and I was very happy to see that. Some guys were wanting to take it on, and it did some damage, but it mainly blew up the Alpes in the Koenig team.
Do you think that Jumbo-Visma and UAE Team Emirates should have used that moment a little more than they did now?
Yes.
I would say definitely. I mean, it was one of the Paris Roubaix. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, and there were some crosswinds in that. And Ineos took it on from like 160k to go, and the 2 groups never really reformed. I mean, some of them made their way back over on the cobbles, but it took out a lot of kind of B-tier riders who, wouldn't be surprised to have won the race. And I think, with the strength Jumbo had, it did seem like a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, Jumbo could sacrifice Affini or Tim van Dijk in those early hours, and then a Staker Langen from UAE. Those aren't the guys who are going very far into this Ronde van Vlaanderen, I think. And I think they lost an opportunity there to eliminate one of the three big favorites for the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
I do think
Exactly.
Affini was in the same group as Van der Poel, so they couldn't use him. But they might have sacrificed him and actually put a lot more damage into that team.
Yeah, you can always use somebody, and the way I see it now, knowing that Van Aert wasn't good enough, they should have used that moment to make Van der Poel himself suffer, because now his team suffered, but we all know Van der Poel is strong enough to go to that final on his own. But they had to make sure he took turns in that echelon as well, I think.
I agree.
Yep.
They could have done more with that.
A few hours later, I think 2 or 3 hours, there was the moment of the Bahrain guy, Machouk. There was a lot of stress going to Eau de Quaremont, but is there another word than stupid for that action?
Well, I
I
think
think
that's
there are more rude words for it. But yeah, that was just totally uncalled for.
Do you think that the crash of Wout van Aert influenced a percent of his race?
No.
I mean, it can't have helped, can it? I saw that photo on Twitter of his knee, and I know it always looks more dramatic than it is, especially when you're cycling. But there was a decent cut in that knee. You think, if you could do your perfect last 30k of Flanders, you wouldn't do it with a cut up knee and having crashed 100k before. It can't have helped.
Yeah, Wout himself, he said afterwards it didn't influence his race, and I don't think so either. He was just not good enough to follow Van der Poel and Pogačar the moment he had to. But I think it could influence these days going into Paris Roubaix.
I don't know how severe that wound will be, and I don't think it will be that severe neither. I think it's just a small cut, and it won't give him too much trouble in the build-up to Paris Roubaix, I think.
Yeah, but you hear a lot that during the race, after crashing, you don't feel anything, but then the next day you wake up, you put your feet on the ground, and then all of a sudden it hurts.
But that crash, the speed wasn't that high when he hit the deck. He already had the opportunity to brake quite a bit, and he more fell over and not really crashed, if I recall correctly.
After the first Eau de Quaremont, I think it was on the way to Berendries and Valkenberg, there was quite a strong group that was able to get away from the peloton with Mats Pedersen, Jurgensen, Paulus, Nathan van Hooydonk. Those guys were all in there. And if I recall correctly, the group took around 3 minutes at a certain point on the peloton. Was there any one of you that thought that the winner was in that group?
I think it was possible for a while, especially when it was 3 minutes. I think there was a moment where it was like, is this race over? That was, of course, until the second time Quaremont, where it was very clear that Pogačar wasn't going to let this happen. I think it was a very good move, as well as seeing someone like Asgreen and Pedersen in there. I think that was the race they had to ride to be able to win this, and I think they did everything they could. They did everything right to try and win this race.
The teams that weren't part of the big three, as we mentioned them a lot, did what they had to do to try and win Ronde van Vlaanderen. A Trek Segafredo, Quickstep, who has been suffering a lot the last couple of weeks, they were up there and they were in the picture. They were fighting for a win / a very good result. So they did everything they could to do something in this Ronde van Vlaanderen, and it was a very smart move from several teams.
Exactly, I think Soudal Quickstep can be pretty happy with their Tour of Flanders, knowing what happened to them the last couple of races. And Merlier as well. He was strong
Yeah,
that day.
he was very strong. Yeah,
Um,
they will be happy after the Ronde van Vlaanderen, except the rather stupid Ballerini crash at the finish line for position 43 or something. But besides that, I think Patrick Lefevre will be rather pleased to see the team bounce back a little bit after a tough E3, a tough Gent-Wevelgem, a tough opening week.
I don't know how it was on GCN, but the Belgian commentators, they were, they were kind of afraid that the group might have made it until the finish line, that Pogačar, Van der Poel, Van Aert weren't coming back. But yeah, I have to be honest, I haven't thought that for 1 second, because we all knew, and we said that in the preview, that Tadej Pogačar had to go solo. His big efforts still had to come on second and third ascent of Eau de Quaremont. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. I remember I said we're going to witness things we've never seen before. And yeah, the way he launched his rocket on those hills, that was incredible.
I didn't
I
know
think-
Eau de Quaremont was flat, to be honest.
I think that's spot on though. Like, if they'd still been 3 minutes behind, kind of after the triple Quermont, Paterberg, Koppenberg, then you might have started to go, been a bit more worried. But there was always in the back of my mind, I always thought there was the possibility and the likelihood of Pogačar just going crazy up the Quermont, which we already knew he could do, right, from last year. And if he could take a minute on there, which he then did, you're cutting into that gap. So I was never 100% sold on the idea that they were going to stay away.
Yeah, if I remember, we've done Tour of Flanders ourselves, and yeah, back in the day when we were still good, at least I was. When we were at the foot of second Eau de Quaremont, we said to each other, and this is where the race starts. And yeah, it really was like that. Pogačar attacked, went full gas on Paterberg, accelerated on Koppenberg. What were you guys thinking on that moment, looking at Van der Poel and Wout van Aert?
My opinion about Van der Poel after the second Quaremont, he wasn't that good, or he didn't have a really good vibe around him. He had to leave a gap to Van Aert as well for a couple of meters. At that point, I thought, Mathieu doesn't have the best legs. But then the next camera shot we saw, he was back in the wheel. I don't know, it was quite weird. I think after the time where he had that small mechanical, at that point Van der Poel, his engine was really on fire, I think. And before that it was rather meh.
I had a weird feeling on Koppenberg, actually, because I think first it was Wout van Aert who had a tough moment on the climb. He had to close a couple of meters, then he closed it. Then it was Van der Poel's turn to have a difficult moment. Yeah, I didn't know what to think at that point. Besides that, yeah, Pogačar was on fire.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's hard to tell because everyone knows that that's Pogačar's strength. And it's like, oh, well, you get 5 meters on the climb, but that's not enough to kind of win. And if Van der Poel was just pacing himself, then you can't know what's going on in their head, can you? So you always expect a gap. It's just how big that gap's going to be, I think.
But the race we witnessed on Sunday showed how strong those three riders are mentally. They can go through a wall, another wall, another wall, and even when they completely or almost completely cracked, then Mathieu has to push 400 watts till the line and he doesn't close into Pogačar. So those guys recover so fast.
Yeah, I had the feeling the two of them, Van der Poel and Van Aert, had to go through the wall, and yeah, Pogačar he took the door.
when you saw that last 5K, Pogačar was dying as well. With that block headwind, he was happy the finish line was in sight as well.
Next
but the
crucial
fact that a lighter guy as Pogačar can hold off and actually extend his lead over a bigger guy like Van der Poel is just insane. And it also says something that the first guy who was in the same group as Pogačar, Van der Poel, and Van Aert on the second ascent of Oude Kwaremont finished 5 minutes and 12 seconds behind them. So that's the amount of distance Pogačar has put into that group from the second ascent of Kwaremont. It's incredible.
next crucial moment to discuss is the big attack of Van der Poel on Kruisberg, which slaughtered the chances of Wout van Aert. Were you guys expecting the attack, and were you expecting Van Aert to drop?
I wasn't expecting Van der Poel to attack there. They were all... I thought they were waiting on the second time Oude Kwaremont and just trying to survive the Pogačar attack, which was coming. But Van der Poel was a bit too much focused on Van Aert and dropping Van Aert, I think. That he might have blew his chances on following Pogačar on the Kwaremont by attacking on the Kruisberg.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think in hindsight, it's easy to go, oh, he'd been dropped on the Kwaremont anyway. But at the time, it did seem a bit odd because Van Aert had seemed to be the weakest. He was the weakest in E3 on the climbs, and then he seemed to be the weakest on the climbs here. And he only had managed to drop Van Aert, and it's like, well, wouldn't you save your powder for like one big attack instead of trying to kind of drop one and then drop another? It did seem a bit strange, but I don't think it mattered in the end. I think Pogačar would have rode off into the sunset anyway.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was a bit bizarre.
Mm-hmm. Jumbo-Visma made Nathan van Hooydonk wait for his big leader. A smart decision?
At that point in the parkour, I don't know. That was 5 kilometers before Oude Kwaremont, and for a moment, like they did sort of get to the tail of the group by the start of Oude Kwaremont, but after that, the help is gone because Van Hooydonk is not going to survive the Kwaremont. So I think it helped him save some energy, but I also think it was too late, and he was never going to be able to fight for the win again. So fighting for the podium was the best possible, which is what he did. So I guess the tactic worked out.
To be honest, when we look at the whole squad of Jumbo, they can't be really satisfied with how they rode this Ronde van Vlaanderen, in my opinion. They were in that very dangerous 19-man group, I think, with Van Hooydonk. But Van Hooydonk is never gonna win in that group. But Jumbo played the card from Van Hooydonk a very long time at the peloton. They didn't work. They were just letting UAE do the job then, I think. Which other team were bringing them back? I don't even recall because...
Alpecin.
Yep. Alpecin had Merisse, I think, yeah.
In my opinion, Van Hooydonk was the wrong guy to be in there.
Yeah, he was.
Laporte.
Laporte or Benoot.
I think as well, they really missed Van Baarle, didn't they? Because if you had Van Baarle in that front group, I mean, maybe they wouldn't have let it get the gap that it did, but he's capable of winning Flanders, I think it's fair to say. And if you have him there, you can kind of play that poker a bit more. But I think having Van Hooydonk, he was never going to outsprint kind of a Pedersen or someone like that. And I think they kind of put them in a sticky situation, didn't it? They didn't really know whether to commit one way or the other.
The rider had to follow the move of Mats Pedersen.
Yeah, indeed. Was that over the move with Jurgensen or on the Berendries?
Yeah, possibly.
But Nathan van Hooydonk was the wrong guy in that group, and Jumbo pokered too long that the gap extended to 3 minutes, and the intensity of the remaining 60 kilometers needed to be very high to even catch that group. and Wout van Aert might need a little less intense final 60 kilometers.
Yeah, I think Pogačar was going to attack on second Oude Kwaremond anyway, and accelerate on Koppenberg. That was just
Yes,
unstoppable.
those attacks on the obstacles would happen as well, but the in between they had to race as well very hard to get to that group, and otherwise they would be more relaxed moments, if you can call them like that, to recover a little bit. And now there was literally not a single moment they could recover.
The next moment was kind of decisive in the race. Pogačar and Van der Poel are at the foot of Oude Kwaremond together. The guy starts his engine and he's gone.
Simple
Yeah.
as that.
No one wanted to follow him even.
Yeah,
Even
indeed.
Van der Poel paced him at the first half of the Kwaremond, I think. He didn't really react on Pogačar going away immediately. He was just like 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters. Pogačar wasn't cracking, but Van der Poel didn't crack neither. He knew he had to limit the damage at the end of Oude Kwaremond and then trying to bridge back on the Paterberg. But he went at 110% as well at the end of Oude
He
Kwaremond.
didn't collapse the first part, but going into the second part of Oude Kwaremond, the guy was completely in the red. Pogačar as well.
They were both
of
cooked
course.
at the end of Oude Kwaremond.
Was there someone who still gave a chance to Van der Poel to come back on top of Oude Kwaremond?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, as a fan, of course you did.
But at the foot of Paterberg, I think the difference was 12 seconds. 12 seconds is still playable to catch up.
Yeah, but
And
Pogačar was the stronger on the uphill.
yeah, but when we saw Pogačar climbing on the last Paterberg, he was suffering immense as well.
But he
then
was
at
faster.
It was 12 seconds at the top of Paterberg as well. They climbed exactly the same speed on the last ascent of the Paterberg.
I need those numbers.
You Richard. Give me a second.
I think it's true though, isn't it? Like, at the bottom of the Paterberg, you think, oh well, it's a short effort. That's what Van der Poel does. If he can muster a bit of not an attack, but a higher intensity. If he can get to within 5 or 6 seconds, then he'll get the slipstream and maybe he can come back. But yeah, on the Paterberg, Pogačar just ground it out, and there was no hope after that. I think it was. I mean, I think I tweeted on the live thread at like 10k it was over. You know, when he's on it, he's metronomic, isn't he? He doesn't. I know he looks like he's suffering, but he kind of floats over the cobblestones almost, and he just seemed to be in a different league on that final climb.
And even afterwards, in the preview, we said that the headwind would make it difficult for the one in front. But yeah, Pogačar is that strong. Well,
It was mano a mano. They were both on their own. So yeah, if it would be Van der Poel and Van Aert in the chasing together, it could have been a different outcome, I think. If they could work together, they might have caught up to Pogačar, but now they had to fight to win.
yeah, my
votes.
point is, this course of Tour of Flanders never lies. The best
That's-
always wins, always. And this time that was a Tour de France winner. Pure history.
Indeed. A very nice Ronde van Vlaanderen.
The irony. As I said in the introduction, there was another part of history, a very important part for this podcast, as Lotte Kopecky took her second win. Nobody knew, but I did.
Oh my god.
No, Yves and Bram, you've been laughing at me for a couple of weeks, but this is it. This is the moment. Please, your opinion.
Next topic, please.
No comment. let's go over to Josh.
Oh, don't put the pressure on me like that. I can't. I mean, what would you say to someone who's come first, second, and first? We'll ignore Ghent level again. But it's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, Eddy Merckx as a team are just on another level. They kind of are like Jumbo, only they don't. Can I say they don't bottle the big races? Bit controversial, maybe, I don't know. But they always seem to have 3 or 4 people in the group, and then they always seem to be kind of 2 steps ahead of everyone else in their strategy. I just watching them is mesmerising. They just are better at racing than every other team. They've got the best riders, they've got the best strategy. They just win.
Is that good for women's cycling?
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
But
I don't think
are
so
they-
either. But yeah, it was a very dominant display.
Is that a problem for them? I don't
No,
think
it's
so.
not their problem. Of course not. Is it good for the longevity of the sport? I don't think so. It's. I hope that a team like Movistar or like a Canyon SRAM can step it up a little bit and sort of maybe they'll be able to do more in the Grand Tours, and that SD Works is now really dominating the classics. So maybe in the second part of the season, we'll see a different balance of power. But for now, it's a bit monotonous. But of course, all hats off to Lotte Kopecky, who did an amazing ride.
After Koppenberg, there were 4 women in front. 3 of them were wearing a SD Works shirt. Reusser, Wiebes and Kopecky. And then there was Persico. Quite a surprise to you guys, or?
I think we already talked about Persico in our Crystal Ball episodes. I don't completely recall what we said, but she was ready for more.
I think I
And-
said that she was going to be a Grand Tour rider.
Yeah, suddenly she showed she's capable to perform very well in Ronde van Vlaanderen as well.
And what about Wiebes surviving Koppenberg? And she was one of the strongest women in the race.
Kudos to Wiebes for being there, but she was maybe a bit lucky with what happened on Koppenberg as well.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
think that's the main factor of this race. That break with Kopecky going and getting Wiebes, Reusser, and Persico with her is because they were the only ones that were able to get through the gap that was caused by which crash was it? I forgot the name. But yeah, basically just one crash stopped the entire peloton, and 4 riders were able to get through. I think Kopecky would have won regardless and would have still had a gap, whether or not that crash would have been there. But I think more people would have had the opportunity to follow.
I have to ask this. What is needed from Kopecky to make sure that my take survives? My take was she was going to win multiple big races. Coming next, Paris Roubaix and Amstel Gold Race.
Well, she's got to win them, isn't she? But I
One-
don't want to be the
one of
podcast
the
that said
two.
that she
Is
has
that
to
enough?
do a certain thing, because that's apparently something you shouldn't do. But, well, if she can win them, great, but she doesn't have to prove anything to us.
Kopecky will not win, I think, Amstel Gold Race. It's more something for Demi Vollering. But your take already is a success. Kudos to that. Let's move on.
This was the moment I was waiting for.
Acknowledgement.
Does she have everything to become the lone record holder of Tour of Flanders?
She has the opportunity to do so because she's won it twice. So, yeah. Mathematically, she is capable. And
Yeah, and I mean,
physically,
she's-
probably as well.
She's got time on her side, hasn't she? She's
Yeah.
27, I think. So she's a lot younger than like Van Vleuten and all the others who are on 2. So I mean, she could be at the front of that race for another 10 years, and you would imagine she would be able to pick up another one in those 10 years. So yeah, why not?
I saw a take of Benji Nasen today, who said that Lotte Kopecky is the best Belgian classics rider at this moment.
At
I
this
have
moment,
to agree.
yeah. If you win multiple classics in a row, then yeah. How is it anything else?
Do we consider that as a hot take?
No.
No,
No.
cold.
Ice cold.
All right. Anyone
Sorry,
something to
Benji.
add about Tour of Flanders? Maybe you should talk about Mats Pedersen. Because I have to be honest, I said I don't expect anything of Mats Pedersen in the preview. I listened a couple of hours ago. Yeah, well, the guy who was on the podium. Was that a mistake?
I mean,
Mats
he earned it
Pedersen-
as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
He
he rode a very smart race.
Yeah.
He knew those three were coming, so he had to have a gap to be able to compete for a possible victory or a podium. He did everything he could, and he fully deserved to be on the last podium spot.
And to have that sprint as well after 270k, yeah, and he was out on his own for quite a long time. So you think he must have just been cooked. But he's just so good, isn't he, at sprints? But after really hard days, I mean, you think of the World Championships he won was almost similar in conditions. He's just a machine at those really hard kind of drags rather than sprints almost.
Yeah, this is just perfect for Pedersen, where the harder the races, he gets better. So many riders say that, oh yeah, I get better after a hard race. I think Wout and Mathieu also say that. But Pedersen just keeps proving it. If it's really bad weather, if the race is long, he's just very, very good.
Yeah, his watts doesn't seem to drop massively in comparison to others. He can still sprint very strong after a long day in the saddle, or if it's raining a lot, and like we saw at the World Championships, he's just a beast.
Yeah, Mats Pedersen is a perfect bridge to get to the Paris Roubaix preview.
I would like
But
to mention
before we cross the bridge, Yves has something to say.
how unfortunate is Tim Wellens in this Ronde van Vlaanderen. He was maybe in his best shape he has ever been at the start of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. He has a very good leader besides him, Pogačar. And then to be taken out that way whilst being on the front in the peloton,
Do you
I
think
think it's
Do you think the UAE DS would let him join the move of Van Hooijdonk, Florian Vermeers, Pedersen, Paulus? Imagine Wellens being in that group.
yeah,
They
it
had
was
Trentin
Trentin
in
or Wellens. It would be one of those two, I think.
And I think Trentin showed really excellent shape as well, sort of bossing the Molenberg. So it's just very much of a shame because we've been talking about Wellens in Ronde van Vlaanderen since our season preview. We tried to predict the season. We were talking about Wellens and thinking, what can he do in the Ronde as a domestique? And now we still don't know. And I think it would have been a really good showing.
I've been bashing a lot on him the last couple of months, years. But those first months he's within the UAE team changed my opinion a little bit, and it was quite sad to see him drop out of the race like that. He was hurting a lot. He was motivated. He was sitting there at the front. It was just a pity to see it end like that.
Yeah, definitely. Can we move over the bridge, Yves?
Let's take the bridge.
All right.
Take the bridge.
Does the performance of Mats Pedersen in Tour of Flanders say anything about his chances in Paris Roubaix?
I'd say so. He's clearly in good shape. Roubaix is perhaps a race that is even more suited for him, as with Van Aert as well. Just bigger guys with sprint. But yeah, I think Pedersen has been in stellar shape for a couple of weeks. where he's been doing very great performances, most often for podium spots or good top 10 placements. But I think at Ronde we saw that he's ready for something more.
Before I ask it to you guys, maybe we should ask the audience to drop their top favorite in the comments for those who are watching on YouTube. But let's hear it from Josh first. Josh, who's going to fly over those cobbles behind you on Sunday?
Can I spice it up?
Spice
before
it up.
you answer? Mention a dark horse and someone you think you can win.
So we need 2 names in the comments, a non-mainstream guy, and the top favorite. All right. Josh, go ahead.
I think it was my preseason pick. I'm going to stick with it. Wout van Aert. I think he's going to be super motivated. He does look on pretty good form. You know, he only got bested by 2, maybe 3 riders of Flanders. I think he's going to want... I know there's been a lot of talk about him, but I think it does get to you a little bit, and I think he's going to want to prove a point. And also he was great last year or the year before, wasn't he? And he had a puncture at an unfortunate time. So he's got the form, he's got the experience, he's got the motivation. I think he's going to win.
All right, next.
For the favorite, I think Van Aert is an easy call. I think that was also my preseason prediction. For the dark horse, I'm doubting between 2 riders. One that I would really love to see it just purely because of the TV it would give. That would be Yves Lampaert. I don't think it's happening, but oh my god, I wish it does, because it would be beautiful television.
That post-race interview would be phenomenal.
I think it would be legend in Belgium if that ever happened. And then my second dark horse, after not seeing him race for maybe 2 weeks, is Arnaud Delis.
Arnaud Delis. So, don't you think the race is a little too long for him at this point in his career?
I don't think so. I mean, I've put him in as a favorite for Milan-San Remo, so you know what I'm going to say to that. So, no.
All right, Yves, your turn.
Well, as I mentioned in my in the questions at the start of this episode, I think Van Aert is the main favorite for Paris Roubaix. I'm looking forward to Van der Poel as well. Seeing him at 100% in Paris Roubaix, I don't think we witnessed that yet without any puncture or bad luck.
He said that in interviews before, that this year, in the past he always felt that at Paris Roubaix his form was going down already. He never felt 100% there. And this season he wanted to try to be on his top level in Roubaix. So yeah, I'm pretty curious to see how that will turn out as well.
And for my dark horse, I'm doubting between 3 guys. So I'm almost mentioning a full peloton, but
so that's playing darts. 3 names.
It are guys with the same capacities. It's Bissiger, Pollitt, and Gunnar.
God damn it! I was going to say, can I say my name first?
No,
can you have Gunnar as dark horse? I don't think he's a dark horse. He's come out and said that's his target, isn't he? I don't think you can have that as a dark horse.
Ghana is a dark horse. Come on.
He came second in Milan-San Remo. That's not. He's clearly going well.
Yeah, never compare Milan-San Remo with Paris-Roubaix, Josh. Come on.
You can have it. You can have it. Oh, I didn't do a dark horse either, did I?
No, you did.
Yeah, I was going to drop the name of Filippo Ganna as well.
It's not dark horse, Hannes.
Oh, it's
How
actually.
can you say that?
It's not spicy enough for Yves.
And my preseason pick was Christophe Laporte, and I actually still believe in that.
No.
If he doesn't break his wheels this year.
But of course, I do hope Wout van Aert gets his monument. I need it. He needs it.
Belgium needs it.
What's your dark horse, Josh?
I think either Stefan Kung. He's really impressed me the last couple of races. But my big dark horse is Magnus Sheffield. He was the only non kind of top 3 rider, I'm including Pidcock in that, so top 4 rider who could follow Pogačar for even a minute up the Clermont. So I think, and he's a time trialist. He's quite relatively big. I think he could do well in the cobbles.
Yeah, but he's hit the deck quite a few times lately. Sheffield.
Yeah, he has been very unlucky.
He's getting all his crashes out of the way so that he won't crash at Roubaix.
Do you guys think that the fact that Wout van Aert didn't win Tour of Flanders will have a big impact on the tactics of Jumbo-Visma?
I don't think so. I think those tactics have been locked down for months, where they are talking already like in November on how they're going to try and be the best possible at Paris Roubaix. They knew that Van der Poel was going to be good, so that's really the main guy that you got to look out for. And I think they might use a similar tactic where they're going to try and put a couple of people out in front and then have Wout come later. But of course, it's Roubaix, it's chaos. Tactics don't really work.
If Jumbo fails to win Paris Roubaix, is their classic season a failure?
Yes, definitely.
They would say so.
If you say it all depends on those 2 races before the season, then that's still the fact after the season. So
isn't that harsh to say after winning Gent-Wevelgem, E3, Omloop het Nieuwsblad?
no, it's not, because they said it themselves.
Yeah, they set their own goals and they've set them extremely high. So I also think they've had a stellar classic season by winning that much. And if it was Soudal Quickstep, they'd be extremely happy. If it was any other team, they'd be extremely happy. But Lotte Jumbo is saying, or Jumbo-Visma, sorry, that's old. Jumbo-Visma is saying, no, we aim higher, and all of that doesn't really matter that much.
What is missing in the Jumbo team to perform and win a Ronde van Vlaanderen and a Paris-Roubaix if they don't win it in a couple of days? Are they missing something? Is their leader that 0.5% less that he needs to win it, or is there something else they can do to...
They're not really missing a thing, I think. There just this one guy, Pogačar. If he isn't in Tour of Flanders, it's a different race. And I don't want to say that Van Aert wins it always if Pogačar isn't there. Of course not. But his chances are bigger, that's for sure.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I think as well, we touched on it, didn't we, earlier? They really did miss Van Baal. He's one of the best one-day racers in the world, I think.
Even with Van Baal, I don't think they would have won it
No,
this
but
year.
it gives them more options, right? Like, if he'd have linked up with Pedersen and gone and they'd taken another minute, or, hypothetically, it just gives them a bit more, another card to play. And in the Cobble Classics, that never hurts, I don't think. Whereas it was really only Van Aert. He was the only one on the team who was capable of winning it. I think Laporte was always going to be slightly behind. Whereas I think a fully fit Van Baal could be right up there.
And when talking about Paris-Roubaix, there are always different scenarios in which you can lose Paris-Roubaix. You can have bad luck. You can never be in the race, or you can lose it because you're not good enough. So, yeah, it all depends on the way how you lose it, I think.
Yeah.
I
think with
Do you think they missed something, Yves?
I don't know, they are preparing weeks on the daily to be ready for the classics, to be ready for the Grand Tours. They might miss... I don't know how to explain. No, I can't explain. Like, Van der Poel and Pogačar seem to be very good friends and ride with each other. And I think those Jumbo guys are more on their own because that team is so strong that like a Koen or a Mohoric is maybe a bad example, but others are not really willing to ride together with someone from the Jumbo team.
No, I don't. I think that's a story made up by Belgian media once again. I've read that a couple of times. That
I think
UAE
not.
and Alpecin, would stick together against Jumbo-Visma. I don't believe
No,
a thing of that.
I'm not saying that, but I think Jumbo doesn't have enough friends in the peloton.
Yeah, they're almost too dominant, aren't they? And so people don't want to work with them. I think that's right.
Teams want to work against Jumbo because that team is that strong. It's not UAE and Alpecin who are working together to drop Van Aert. No, it's more like Jumbo is maybe too dominant, has been too dominant in the previous classic races the last weeks. That is just, let's race against Jumbo and eliminate the team as fast as possible to isolate Van Aert.
I still don't believe that, to be honest, because I don't think Van Aert lost Tour of Flanders because they really wanted to drop every one of Jumbo. I think he lost it because he wasn't good enough to follow.
Yeah, I think you're right.
One more thing. What do we expect of Soudal Quickstep in Paris Roubaix?
Not a lot. They'll have some numbers up there with like 50k to go, and then a group will go off the front, and it won't have them. Just seems to be the way their season's going.
I think they'll use the same tactic as they did in the Ronde and send someone potentially in the early break if there's one.
Tim de Klerk, please.
That would be great to see. As well as if there is a later move, send someone like Lampaert, Seneschal in there to have a chance, because they shouldn't wait for a Van der Poel or a Van Aert to go. And I think they've sort of realized that where, okay, they need to anticipate, and they've settled into that role. So that's what I expect to see from them. And I think maybe it can lead to a result. As I said, I'm sort of wishing a Lampaert win or podium, but it will be so difficult.
Soudal Quickstep will perform better in Paris-Roubaix than they did in the previous classic races. It suits them a little bit better. A Lampaert, a Merlier, an Asgreen, when those hills aren't there and those explosive, punchy accelerations are there, it's just a full sector, 2 or 3 kilometers, high power numbers. It's a completely different race in comparison to the Ronde van Vlaanderen and E3, etc. But if they have the bad luck they had the last couple of weeks,
I want to drop another name, and I'm sure Yves, you'll have a big laugh. What do we expect from Sepp van Marke?
Sorry.
Told you so.
Why? Sepp van Marke is... I looked back at Han-Wilhelm 2015, where the heroic weather circumstances, and Van Marke haunted me even when watching a replay from 8 years ago. But he's very good this season, but he's not gonna get the top 5. This
Top 10?
Paris-Roubaix. Top 50 maybe.
The form is good. The legs are there. The course is there.
But it's Sepp van Marke you're talking about. It's every hole in the ground or tree he sees around next to the road is a possible danger for him.
Poor guy.
Sorry.
All right. Let's talk about the women's race as well on Saturday.
Oh, sorry. Before we move on, just a little something. I ran a quick poll on Twitter asking if Ganna for Roubaix is a hot take, and 100% of people have said no. So I don't think you can have Ganna as your hot take pick. I'm really sorry.
And
Okay,
how many
Stefan
people
Bissegger.
voted? Because if there are only 2 people,
Well, it
5.
hasn't reached double digits yet. I did it on my personal account, but there 4 people. 4 people have voted.
One of them was me, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, even if we all think it's a hot take, then 4 other people don't think it's a hot take, and so you can't have it because majority rules. So
ice cold. All right, the women's race on Saturday. We already mentioned Lotte Kopecky as the big favorite, but who are the opponents?
I feel like this is the same questions we had to answer last week. And
Marlene
you're
Reus.
going to come by with well, there are no opponents, are there? She's going to win.
We all know there's one name coming.
Who? I don't know.
I think Shari Bossait has a fair chance for a top 10 place.
Yes. It's finally not Eve talking about Shari Bossait for the first time. My girlfriend will be happy. Yeah. Shari Bossait is a contender for top 10. It's a race she loves as well. But you need a little bit of luck as well. Elisa Longo Borghini, for example, from Trek, she rode an exceptionally strong Ronde van Vlaanderen. She had like 9 lives. She came back every time after being dropped on the hills, working for Van Androoy. And after the last time Paterberg, Van Androoy decided to work for Longo Borghini, and Longo Borghini did even a really good sprint. I don't know where she ended up.
Third?
But Longo Borghini is my not so hot take for Paris
Come
Roubaix.
on, she's among the favorites.
No,
Once again, as cold as ice.
There is only one favorite, and it's SD Works. You need to be honest. If someone wins who's not in the SD Works team, it's a surprise.
I don't know if Shirin Van Androoy is starting at Paris Roubaix.
Not
But-
Star
on the
Wars
list
has
yet.
not been confirmed yet.
It
No,
should
there's not
be a
many
race
people.
that suits her well, too.
Yeah, and she's shown that she is in a very good form. So
Isn't she a little bit too light, as in body weight, to be able to compete for the win in Paris Roubaix?
Lizzie Deanan won it as well, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Quite similar, I think. And
Yeah,
then, there's once again Marlene Reusser.
Yeah, but there is only Kopecky is announced for the SD Works. I don't know who's racing besides Kopecky,
think-
but it's
Reusser should
think-
be there too.
yeah, I think Reusser is a pretty sure bet that she'll be there.
I think
It will be
Team DSM, sorry, Team DSM
go ahead.
is an interesting team. Pfeiffer Georgie's been on some great form, hasn't she? She won Bruges Japan. You could see her up there. I think it's a race that would suit her. And young wolf Maeve Plouffe is doing it. And as a kind of pursuiter, I would think Roubaix could be a race she could be quite good at the top end.
look at
so
Hannes. Look at him smiling when that
No,
name
it's
pops up.
That's way too early in her career.
I agree.
oh, completely. I don't think she'll be winning it, but I think it'll be interesting to see
There's
how she does.
Charlotte Kool as well.
Yeah.
It could be interesting.
But the team is very strong with Pfeiffer Georgie on a very high level. That's Megan Jastrap is performing very strong as well. Together with Cole, who has very fast legs, and if she gets on the velodrome in the first group, she's a big danger to take the win. But it's a team full of outsiders, Team DSM.
I'm going to drop one more name that I think is a contender for top 3. Lucinda Brandt.
Yeah, I mean, in the Trek team, there's a couple of names that are possible for that podium. I think in the past couple editions, how many times did they win it? Quite a few times.
Yeah, I think
It's-
Longo
it's
Borghini
gonna
won it
be-
last year, and then it was it Dean in the year before?
It's gonna be the third time they win it.
So
this
yeah,
year, if
there's
they
been
win
2
it.
editions. They've won both times.
Yeah.
Every time they put a really strong team forward. So if it's Brandt, I think it's perfectly within her capabilities So yeah, I think she might be able to win it, although I haven't really seen the form of her in the past couple of weeks.
I'm pretty surprised, Bram, you didn't mention the GOAT.
Marianne Vos?
Yeah?
She's not been announced yet, so I dare not say.
Should be there, I think.
And what about Movistar?
Yeah, I don't know. Annemiek van Vleuten crashed pretty hard in Tour of Flanders. Don't know how she feels at this point. But Arlene Sierra, for instance, should be able to do that as well.
Liane Lippert and Floortje Mackay maybe as well? Or is it not selective enough climbing-wise?
I think the course isn't really suited for Mackay, I'm afraid. Could be wrong though. We'll see. Yves, you're going to the races this weekend?
Yeah, Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday.
So I think you're joining me, to be honest.
I might.
Busted.
Yeah, sure. Looking forward to be at the races again.
And the weather doesn't look too bad neither. On Saturday it will be a little bit cloudy, I think, and on Sunday the sun will pop out.
13, 14 degrees. Not a lot of wind. That's good for us, not good for the race.
A lot of dust to be eaten.
Yeah. All right. Bram, it's all yours.
All right, that's a wrap for today's Domestique Cycling Podcast. A big thank you for our audience for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing on our YouTube page and turn on notifications. Also, consider supporting us on the Ko-Fi link in the description. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I've got the spots, the sickness. There's the twins in my brain.